I would like to update you on my predictions. Remember I told you that your filter on life is probably subjective like everybody else's, but you can tell if you have a good filter by whether it predicts well. So I like to make predictions in public and then see if they're right or wrong, which I talk about in my book, Loser Think. One of the ways you can tell if you're in a bubble is by making predictions and then putting those predictions out in the real world to see how they do. And if your predictions are always wrong, well, maybe you should rethink your worldview. But if your predictions are often right, maybe you're onto something. So track your predictions. Let me update you on mine. So on Predicted, the online betting market, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 bets. So I'm going to tell you what the bets are. Now, all of these except one that I updated recently by adding to it are all ones that I've had for months and months. So you have my word that nothing on this list was recently bet. So these are all older bets with the exception of one that I added to. So one of the bets I have, and I've had for many months, is who will be the 2020 Democratic nominee. A year ago, I thought it would be Kamala Harris, and I had a bet on that. That bet is not looking good, but it's the bet that I doubled down on because the price of shares is so low, and I had some extra cash in the account that wasn't used, so I thought, let's throw some more money in there. Now, the thing is, when you say to yourself, there's no way that she can get elected, remember that you're also saying that about all the other candidates. If there were one candidate that I thought were likely to be elected, I would say, well, that's a dumb bet, because why would I bet on somebody who's unlikely when there's somebody in the race who's likely? And the answer is there's nobody likely. There's just nobody in the race who you could say, yeah, this is the one. So I'm gonna keep my bet. All right. So we don't know if that's right or wrong. It looks like it'll be wrong, but all of the reasons that I made the original bet are the same. Because she's still the one who could bring together this so-called Obama coalition, maybe as well as anybody else can. So we'll leave that bet, and we'll see how that does. Here's some other bets I had. I actually bet on whether or not Trump will still be the president at the end of this year, which is, a month or so. So it looks like I'm going to win that bet. I couldn't believe when I made this bet, I couldn't believe it was even available as a bet. I had trouble believing that there was an actual market for the question of whether Trump would still be in office. And I think I did this bet in the beginning of 2019, somewhere around there. So, of course, that bet's doing well. It looks like he'll be president at the end of 2019. Then I also bet, will Trump be the 2020 GOP nominee? He's got like 95% approval level in the GOP. Again, I couldn't believe that was available. The odds for this one and the last one were not very high, but I just looked at it and I thought, I think that's free money. I think all I have to do is put some money down and they'll give me more money back. So I've got a bet on that. That's looking good. Now this was interesting. I had a bet, again, this was many months ago, that the 2020 Democratic nominee will be a woman. So you could bet whether it would be male or female. I bet female. So I will win if it's Warren or Harris or Klobuchar or Tulsi Gabbard. Now, obviously, I have more of a chance of winning, I suppose, on Warren than the others, but I'm keeping that bet. Then I had a bet. You can use your own judgment about why I made this bet. But there was a bet as to whether NASA would record that 2019 was the hottest year on record. And I bet yes. Now, I don't know if it'll be the hottest year on record, but doesn't it seem like they're going to say so? It just seemed to me that whether or not it's the hottest year on record, I feel like NASA's going to say so. I feel like they're going to say it is. So at the moment, that bet is down. It's way down, actually. So apparently the temperatures have not been cooperating. So those are my bets. So you can see how they're doing. I'm trying to figure out what hoax will be next, because it looks like the impeachment thing completely failed. It looks like the polls are moving opposite Schiff's direction. In other words, the president is picking up support. He's got a record economy and all-time high Republican support. I mean, he's really in good shape. The president is really in good shape for the re-election. So the Democrats are going to have to come up with another hoax, because the hoaxes that they've tried so far have not worked, amazingly enough. So let's try to predict what is next. And I'm starting to see some test balloons go up. And I thought to myself, if you're a Republican, how can you explain your world based on what you've seen? All right. So my worldview is completely consistent. So my worldview says President Trump did not do anything impeachable and therefore will not be removed from office. Now, if he's not removed from office, my worldview will be consistent. But what if your worldview is that you're a Democrat? What if your worldview is not only that the president did something that's impeachable, but several impeachable things, and their worldview is it's all obvious. There's no question about the facts. It's just all obvious. What would you think about the president not being removed from office? How would your world make sense? In my world, he doesn't get removed from his office because he didn't do anything that would warrant that. But if you think he did plenty of things that warrant it, how do you explain it a year from now when he's still in office? Well, we're seeing the answer to that. You already know the answer, right? The answer is that the Republicans are a cult. That seems to be the answer they're looking for to make their world make sense. Because if Republicans are a cult and not looking at reason, then that makes sense, because the Republican majority in the Senate will never vote to support impeachment, but not because there's not evidence, according to the Democratic view of the world. It's because it's a cult. And I think that most of us, when we hear that, our first reaction is to laugh, right? It's just laugh. Because it's, on first blush, it's just sort of humorously ridiculous. But CNN actually had a cult expert on to describe how Trump supporters actually fit the definition of a cult. Now, it's a cult leader that who actually interviewed me recently, a few months ago, and I think I'm in the book that was mentioned, or at least he interviewed me as part of that. I don't know if I made it into a book or it was just for his website. I'm not sure, but I did talk to him. So part of his evidence, this cult expert, part of his evidence that the GOP is a cult is that they have an all-powerful leader. A leader who's, like got complete power. That's one of the definitions of a cult. To which I humorously tweeted, I belong to a cult whose leader is so powerful that he almost got fired for making a phone call. That's how powerful Trump is. He almost got fired for making a phone call. That's not exactly the most powerful leader in the world. Do you know what Putin never almost gets fired for? Making a phone call. Do you know what President Xi of China never gets almost fired for? Making a phone call. Do you know what I almost never get fired for? Making a phone call. Trump's the only person in the world who could lose his job for making a phone call. Now, of course, I'm using a little hyperbole, but the point is, in what world does Trump look like he has all this power? He can't control the border on his own. He can't get a bill passed on his own. He can't get a trade deal done. He can't get the USMCA signed. He can't do anything on his own, it seems. So the thought that the GOP is a cult is laughably predictable and funny.